Bum, 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 bum. Bum, 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 bum. Oh, wait. Hey there, gamers. I didn't think you'd be checking in this month. I mean, I guess I can put down my controller for a second and I can do the co-op monthly if you really want. I mean, I get it. There's a lot going on in the gaming landscape right now, and you and your friends are probably wanting to know what co-op games came out last month, what co-op games are coming out next month, and any co-op news in between. Well, you have come to the right place. It's the co-op monthly for May, so let's get started.
We had a decent amount of co-op games roll out last month, so let's see what critics and gamers alike thought of this lot. Well, you've heard it before, but I'm gonna be yet another person to say it. Redfall is bad. It is by far one of the worst games either of us have ever played, and easily the most scorching review we've done on this channel. But at least we're not alone on this, as Redfall is sitting with a 58 on OpenCritic and a mostly negative label on Steam. It's a rare miss for Arcane and yet another L for Team Xbox. But it's co-op gamers who suffer the most, as this could have been a big tentpole release for us. Alas, we have Diablo 4 right around the corner to make us forget about all of this. Starship Troopers Extermination hit early access on the 17th and so far seems to be doing pretty well for itself, garnering a very positive label on Steam. If you don't remember, this is that 16-player match-based online co-op shooter that ties in with the classic franchise. You'll drop into a match and be placed into a squad of 4 as you and your teammates defend your base from the onslaught of alien bugs. It seems like the content is a bit light at launch, which tends to be the case with these early access titles, but hopefully it can sustain a player base until its next big update. The Outlast Trials has finally released onto early access, and we were happy to get our spooky crew back together to tackle some of the new content. Check out our gameplay video to see the entire second trial done in co-op. Overall, we see a lot of potential for this title, and we're not alone in that, as we're seeing a ton of praise even on its early access launch. Here's what VG247 had to say. We have high hopes that the Outlast Trials might just be one of the best multiplayer horror titles of the year. There's an attention to detail here that isn't often seen in co-op horror, and I believe the Outlast Trials will genuinely freak its players out, just as the series debut did in 2013. Inkbound is a 4-player online co-op roguelike featuring turn-based combat and was released onto early access on the 22nd. Since it was so recent, we don't have too many reviews or scores to pull from, but the game has garnered a mostly positive label on Steam. Reception for this one seems kinda mixed, but Polygon did do a review on it, which they summarized by saying, "In the end, the truest measure of roguelikes is whether they instill that one more run feeling, and Inkbound has that in spades. If the game's early access is its prologue, I'm ready to read chapter 1. Last co-op release of the month comes in the form of the colorful co-op shooter slash platformer Glitchbusters Stuck on You. Since it just released last week, reviews are slowly doling out and they also seem mixed. Push Square gave it a 4 out of 10, citing poor controls in AI, but mainly that it doesn't work well in solo play. Whereas Sportskeeda gave it an 8 out of 10 with minimal negatives outside of some audio bugs they encountered. We've had our eye on this one for a minute now, so hopefully we can find some time to check it out for ourselves soon.
June is absolutely barren of any co-op releases, and maybe that's because everyone is making way for the return of the king, Diablo 4. That's right guys, reviews for Diablo 4 popped off early due to an early release date for those of you crazy people who like deluxe versions, and it is currently sitting at an astounding 90 on OpenCritic. That puts it firmly in the running for co-op game of the year. Most reviews are praising its refining of the Diablo formula while improving the gameplay loop with a top-notch open world to explore. There are still some questions left, like how the season pass will feel, what kind of microtransactions we're looking at, and whether or not the servers can keep pace with the onslaught of players that are going to come in this weekend. We'll be jumping in as soon as we can, probably on release day, so expect at least a couple of pieces of content from your boys in the near future. Speed Crew is another Overcooked-like, but as you can tell from this footage, it is focused on being a pit crew for a race car. I mean, if you told me that I could be that fast little Italian guy from Cars, I'd be down. If you're into Overcooked-like games, check this one out on the 8th for Switch, PS4, Xbox One, and PC, with 4-player online or local co-op. You know, we don't talk about VR enough around here, and I'm gonna remedy that with C Smash VR. Okay, so what are we looking at here, bro? It's some sort of space exploration game with your friends. Okay, what is this? Wait a second, is this a tennis game? I did not see that coming. Maybe there's a reason that we haven't broken into the VR space yet, but later in the show, Gabe is gonna try again. Going to quickly round out with a couple of solid ports, starting with Gunfire Reborn being ported to PlayStation platforms. For the uninitiated, this is a roguelite shooter you can play with friends. It's really good and worth a playthrough if it looks interesting to you and your friends. Gabe and I can confirm because we both played it, and there's 70,000 plus user reviews that agree with us, giving this a 93% very positive. The second port I want to mention is coming to PlayStation and Xbox consoles, TooDee and TopDee. It's a local co-op platformer where you switch perspectives between a 2D platformer and a top-down puzzler, and now you see where they got the title from. I wanted to mention it because we missed this at launch, but it looks really cool, has some great user reviews on Steam, so if you're not a PC Master Race gamer or a Switch gamer, now you can check it out too.
With Summer Game Fest right around the corner and a new PlayStation showcase, we have plenty to talk about here in our news blog, but first, let's start with updates on any released co-op titles. You know, when Overwatch 2 launched, I was kinda confused as to why they made a sequel in the first place, but then I saw that alongside the visual upgrade and new heroes, it was getting a whole new co-op PvE heroes mode. That seemed pretty cool, but it didn't launch with the game, and now it seems like we'll never get that as Blizzard has decided to scrap the idea altogether. It seems like the game will still get some PvE story missions at a later date, but fans of the game aren't having it, as many see this as a bait and switch and possibly the last straw in a string of disappointments with Overwatch 2. Ravenswatch received its first real update on May 31st, aptly named the Geppetto update, as it welcomes Geppetto as the first new character to join the Ravenswatch. That's not all, as the update brings with it some other features like how all heroes are getting a second ultimate skill and the ability to teleport from anywhere on the map while not in combat. We can't wait to see what this game looks like in 1.0, and I'm happy to see this as the first step in that journey. Ember Knights passed a big milestone early this month, with it spending a whole year in early access. To celebrate, the team launched their last patch recently and are now working towards a full 1.0 release sometime this summer. I've had a ton of fun playing this co-op roguelike with Jake, Christian, and Andy, and I'm really excited to see what more they can add with the full release, as the assisting content was super solid. Finally, to wrap up this update section, let's talk about V-Rising's first major update, Secrets of Gloomrot. As you know, V-Rising was our 2022 co-op game of the year, so we're very excited to see it getting a sizable update. The update, which launched on the 17th, gives you access to the new region of Gloomrot. It allows you to build bigger multi-level castles and brings with it new weapons like the dual pistols. And that's just the tip of the iceberg, it seems. V-Rising is easily the best early access game we've played, and I won't be surprised to see it getting some insane critic scores when it launches onto 1.0.
It's that time of the show where we move on to news for the titles that we don't have our hands on yet. Arc Raiders is continuing to chug along in development, and in a recent developer blog from executive producer Alexander Grandal, we got an update on how it's going, and I quote, "Over the course of development, Arc Raiders has taken the shape of what we believe to be a truly promising PvPvE survival extraction shooter, a game that stays true to the Arc Raiders universe and that we're having a blast testing internally. So, it is no longer a purely co-op game, but we're fine with that as long as it's good." You might remember that one of the several Witcher-related projects CD Projekt Red is working on was Project Sirius, a co-op focused game. Well, it sounds like it's had some troubles during development and has to reboot its progress. Basically, they didn't like where it was going, had to re-establish direction, and now we're not going to see it for a good bit here. That's a bummer, but as Miyamoto once said, Witchers take a long time to grow. It's best to take development slow. Man, that guy is quotable. We got a very meaty trailer of Lords of the Fallen, formerly known as The Lords of the Fallen, a reboot from 2014's Lords of the Fallen. It's looking even more FromSofty than ever, and while Souls-likes are a dime a dozen, no one can copy like these guys can. We got some new co-op details in an interview with Edge magazine where Hexworks creative director Cesar Virtuoso, definitely screwed that up, said that the co-op mode will be seamless and untethered. That means no in-game items needed, and you can play with each other as long as you like, If there's one thing that we don't want to be copied from Souls games, is their co-op system. So glad to see the team recognize that. We also got a release date of October 13th this year. Nightingale's early access release date has been pushed back to the fall, according to a recent update from the developers on their YouTube channel. I appreciate the transparency, and seeing just how ambitious this title looks to be, totally fine with me. They've been doing some playtesting, and after taking in all of the feedback from players, it was apparent the developers needed more time to make adjustments. And they're going to continue playtesting and opening that pool up even more, so hopefully more of you get your hands on this one, and hopefully it's really good. All of this brings to mind a quote I recently heard from Miyamoto. "The Nightingale is known for its beautiful song. Release too early, and you'll be in the wrong." I mean, seriously, this guy is a sage. Remember when for like 2 hours we were all fooled into believing Spider-Man 2 might actually be a co-op title? Yeah, that was kind of fun, but Insomniac immediately shut down those rumors with a swift tweet. The whole rumor was based off of an interview from the Miles Morales voice actor from a while ago that just now surfaced up, where he thought the game was co-op, but he was wrong. I don't know, it's whatever. If you're a true Co-op Bro fan, then you know we confirmed a while ago it wouldn't be a co-op title, so hopefully this rumor did not faze you. Side note, that trailer was really good, and we're so pumped for this game to come in the fall, not even the slightest bit disappointed that this is a single player experience. For the King 2 has finally come out into the wild with a closed beta, and there were a few lucky channels that got to preview this game. And no, I'm not talking IGN or GameSpot, but your very own Co-op Bros. That's right, thank you guys, thank you. It's because of you, you're the real heroes. We really enjoyed what we played, and while it feels very similar to the first game, the team is making smart updates that make the co-op feel even better, and the move to 4 players from 3 players is a great example of exactly that. Check out our video for more on For the King 2. During the PlayStation Showcase, which we'll be talking about plenty in our next block, we saw a teaser for Destiny 2's final update, The Final Shape. Not much to say yet, we're gonna get more details in a Destiny Direct in August, but Cade 6 is back, Nathan Fillion is reprising his role, so your boys are probably going to have to dive back in for the final chapter of Destiny 2.
Jumping in real quick here to give an update on Hyperlight Breaker, which was the cover story on the latest issue of Edge magazine, which I recently subscribed for. The story covered a lot, from its Breath of the Wild influence to how its open world will work alongside its roguelike format. I was most excited to hear about the co-op, of course, and the story did confirm that the game will have shared progression when played in 4-player online co-op. The head developer described the transition from solo to online play as pretty seamless and likened it to games like Destiny or Phantasy Star Online. All in all, great things to hear, and we can't wait to see more of this game in action.
Before we hop into all the big announcements, we did have one game that felt like it was sorely missing from Sony's showcase, The Last of Us multiplayer project. Well, if you were like us and hoping it wasn't there because Jeff had stolen away for Summer Game Fest, think again, as Naughty Dog has openly admitted the game isn't ready to see the light of day. Jason Schreier, the man, the myth, the legend, followed up reporting that the team is actually being scaled back and put onto other things, which makes many of us worry that this could be the end of the project altogether. That is a major disappointment for us, and my dreams of Last of Us but Division are looking pretty far-fetched at this point. I'm afraid not even Miyamoto has a quote up his sleeve to make me feel better about this one.
Like I said earlier, Sony kicked off Summer Game Fest with one of their seminal PlayStation showcases, and while the show was okay, we did get a ton of new co-op announcements. The show kicked off with the reveal of Fair Games. This is the first game from Haven Studios, which Sony acquired, and it looks to be a PvEvP heist/extraction game. Pulling from the PlayStation blog, they described the game as a thrilling competitive heist game where you join an underground movement to rob the ultra rich and rebalance the scales. This actually very much reminds me of Hood Outlaws and Legends, which we weren't very hot on, but hopefully Sony's backing makes this one worth playing whenever it comes out, as no release date was given. This next announcement had everyone in our livestream chat popping off, as Helldivers 2 was finally revealed. This is the sequel to the 2015 top-down shooter, now with a third-person perspective. The trailer confirmed we'll be able to team up with 3 other friends as we fight off waves and waves of nasty alien baddies. The tone of the trailer was a ton of fun, and it was definitely one of the highlights of the showcase, as it's coming to PS5 and PC sometime this year. The hype immediately died down with this next announcement, as Foam Stars was revealed to be a budget Splatoon copycat and not a good one at that. The CG trailer looked okay at first, but yeah, once this gameplay hit, I don't know, maybe it could be fun? We weren't too impressed. No release date was given for this 4v4 party shooter, so I guess we'll hear more about it next year. Next announcement was Towers of Agasba. Probably butchering that, but hey, you try pronouncing it. This is an open world fantasy survival game. Gives me major James Cameron Avatar vibes with its weird, whimsical world full of animals. The website says you'll be able to visit your friends' unique islands to get ideas for how to develop your own, or you can invite everyone to your island to explore, harvest, or just hang out together. No release date was given on this one either, so go wishlist it on Steam to keep up with it. So we've been told we don't cover enough co-op VR games, and that's mainly because neither of us have bought into VR just yet, but here's one co-op VR title that was announced at the showcase. This is Crossfire Sierra Squad. This actually seems like a solid co-op title, as it not only has a separate co-op campaign for up to 2 players, but also a horde mode for up to 4 players. So there you go, a potentially great co-op VR game coming later this year. The last co-op announcement of the showcase is arguably the one I was most excited for, considering it's coming from Bungie. This has been rumored for quite a bit now, but the team finally unveiled their next game titled Marathon, which itself is a revival of an old IP of theirs. I love everything about this. The look, the music, it's yet another PvEvP extraction game, which is a type of game I've been very into lately, so it's cool to see this genre really starting to take off. A follow-up interview video got into more details, like how the game will have seasonal content, and how special events can be shaped by the player base. Very excited for this. It's probably a year or 2 from release, but it's one we'll be keeping a very close eye on. Apart from the PlayStation Showcase, we did have a couple other co-op games announced, so I'm gonna go through these real quick. Old school beat-em-ups really are back, or maybe they just never left. Regardless, Double Dragon Gaiden Rise of the Dragon is yet another co-op beat-em-up asking for your money. It looks like a ton of fun and features local 2-player co-op with the promise of online co-op coming post-launch. It's coming to all platforms sometime this summer. Wizard of Legend 2 was revealed at the smaller Humble Game Showcase, which I was actually pretty excited about. I've heard nothing but praise from the first game, which was a co-op roguelike featuring fluid mage combat. One of the most notable changes is the change from a 2D art style to a more overhead 3D art style in the sequel. It remains a 4-player co-op roguelike, which is good to hear. There's no release date yet, but as always, wishlist on Steam to stay up to date with the game. Last announcement here comes from a very unexpected developer. What if I told you that this game comes from the team behind Surgeon Simulator and the game I Am Bread? Yeah, pretty big departure. Lost Skies is an upcoming open world co-op adventure where you and 5 friends can explore floating islands, build flying ships, and take on a slew of giant monsters. No release date was given, but the game seems to be on track for a PC release sometime next year.
And that's all she wrote for this one, guys. Thanks for coming to the Co-op Monthly. As always, we appreciate it. If you've enjoyed the show, you learned something, like, comment, subscribe, do the YouTube things for us. We'd appreciate it. We are on a little bit of a break of playing games. We will be back with Diablo for next week, but we have some stuff going on in real life that's holding us back from playing, so don't expect any streams anytime soon, but we'll still be getting content out and covering all the showcases coming up in the next couple weeks. So we will catch you next time on another episode of the Co-op Bros.